Excited to be having this session with you all today. My name is Ahmed Mirza. I am one of the investment leads at Techstars Los Angeles and a bunch of other programs, but we'll cap it at Techstars LA. And I'm joined by one of my colleagues, Sunil Sharma, who heads up Techstars Toronto. Together we collaborate on all things Techstars, but most of all, we're excited and united in our passion for evangelizing entrepreneurship, investing in some of the brightest minds in the world, and really helping founders kind of bring their visions and missions to life. So with that, I'll let Sunil maybe give some high-level intro before we sort of get kicked off.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Ahmed. So Sunil Sharma, I'm in a suburb of Toronto, Canada. I've been leading Techstars here in Canada for coming up on 7 years. We finished our ninth batch of investments recently that took us to 100 portfolio companies here and many more in other parts of Canada that have participated in other Techstars. We'll talk about that in a moment. I have a bit of an unusual background in sort of as a tech investor, because I've had sort of two full careers. And the first career was as a Canadian diplomat. I was a foreign service officer for Canada, which I joined after my graduate school degree. I was someone who liked doing Model United Nations and debating and things like that in school. And then I saw an opportunity to join the Foreign Service and went through some tests and all that, and I got accepted. So I spent a nice career, and my final posting was in California, running a consulate there. And I just thought that entrepreneurship is where I should be. And I thought people on those I saw around me in California were really changing the world in a way that I wanted to, participate in. So I found a way to transition into tech, and I started a tech accelerator in Canada called Extreme Startups more than 10 years ago, and joined one of the venture funds that backed us as a partner, but really thought Techstars is what the country needs, a global investment platform. So I brought it to Canada, or helped bring it quite some time ago. And that's what I've been doing ever since, investing as Techstars, but with a very global lens, a very international lens, which might be partly from my earlier career in the Foreign Service.
Fantastic. Yeah. So thanks, Sunil. For myself, I'd say my background kind of varies as well. I've had maybe one full career just prior. So earlier on in my career, I was on Wall Street as an investment banker, started my career there, transacted mergers and acquisitions. And after a full 7 years, got tired and wanted to go build something on my own. I came from a family of small business owners. My dad had multiple businesses when I was growing up, and I remember spending lots of time in his shops as a kid. So for me, it was very natural to come back to entrepreneurship and get my hands dirty and start building things. Built my first startup. Didn't go so well. I learned a lot of things, but then transitioned, built another startup, had a soft landing with that. And my claim to fame just before Techstars is that I was an entrepreneur in residence at a number of venture studios. And I took 7 companies from napkin stage to first fundraise in the span of 3 years. I worked on everything from SaaS to robotics to CPG to metaverse when that was cool. And then I learned quite a few things during that time and wanted to help coach entrepreneurs. And that's what brought me over to Techstars. So I've been here for the last year and a half or so, and really just excited to be working with founders day in and day out. So then, as I was kind of thinking about what we could talk about of value for all the participants that are joining here today, I often sort of encounter a lot of founders that sort of conflate these two terms, incubators and accelerators, and we think that these are diametrically two different things, that they need to be talked about very differently. And we want to kind of share some insights with you. So for us, an incubator is, sort of a pre-seed accelerator or pre-seed phase of the startup journey. This is where you are conceptualizing your idea. you are thinking about what it is that you want to build, and you really want to figure out what it is that you want to build, who you want to sell it to, what the market opportunity is, sort of all the elements that go into an initial startup idea. There are organizations that do a great job at helping companies from the very start of their journey. And it's important to work with them to sort of help you, flush out your idea, get to the core essence of what you're looking to build. But incubators have their own function, and they're very different from what we do and what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today, which are accelerators. Accelerators kind of pour jet fuel on the fire. Our job is, so let's say you have a company, you already have found some initial traction. Maybe you're trying to figure out all the elements of who your target demographic is, or how you're going to increase your distribution. This is where accelerators can really, really help, especially the ones that have mentorship built into their programs. They will assign you or pair you up with mentors, help you along the way, and really force you to do what's necessary over a very short period of time. Most accelerators out there today are around 3 to 4 months. And their goal is to just get you, quickly increase your revenue, whether you're on a monthly recurring basis or an annual recurring basis, and really get to product market fit as quickly as possible. So that brings me to Techstars. What do we do at Techstars, and why is it so important? So just real quickly, slides. Okay, let me see. Are slides not moving? Let me see.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I see
them.
They
are? Okay, cool.
For me, yeah. Ali's managing the chat, and I don't think it's an open chat, so people are messaging you.
Okay.
I think now they can move. They're moving.
They're moving. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. So at Techstars, we're one of the largest accelerators in the world. We manage over 50 programs worldwide. We're in nearly 40 cities and 14 countries as well. So just some very high-level stats of where we are and how we're operating. And then, our accelerator model is such that we often partner with large corporates to bring about innovation. And now, Techstars has been, kind of doing this for the last 15 or so years. We've accelerated over 3,700 companies. That number will soon be 4,000. And we have a market cap of over $100 billion in terms of our portfolio value. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about my work at Techstars LA. I live there now. I moved there from New York over the last 7 years. And I really enjoy all, the diversity that LA has to offer to startup founders and entrepreneurs as a whole. And in LA, we're doing something really unique and special in the Techstars universe. I help run and manage 3 of our programs in LA. So that's Techstars LA, Healthcare, and Space. And we're investing in 48 companies a year. So quite a great number of investments that we're making. And, obviously, as a result, we're looking at over 3,500 applications a year as a result. And then conversely, and this is where I'll pass it off to Sunil, he'll talk about some of the elements that he's doing in Toronto.
Right. So we've have a city program, it's called. So that means that Techstars Toronto doesn't have a vertical industry focus like in space or healthcare. So truly just looking for the best entrepreneurs, best businesses that are in the formation or preferably the post-launch phase of the company, showing some signs of life, some good traction, but really, as you said, predicated under the belief that we have they have a fantastic team. And so we discover these companies through whatever channel, through direct, inbounds, expression of interest, or referrals from investors. And it really speaks to what's going on, I think, in Canada, that it's an active tech market. Toronto in particular, very global city. And our thesis has been to invest into a lot of businesses that are relevant to the global diaspora. So you think of companies that have a solution to problems that are faced by immigrants or prospective immigrants or people who have international backgrounds. So things usually often they involve money, remittances or payments or solutions to problems they have, such as housing or credit, or communication. And so we actually see those problems here in Toronto. It's a great city, but it is an expensive city. It's a city that people do struggle with in terms of accessing the country and accessing visas. And when people arrive here, there are some challenges relating to banking and creditworthiness. And so we sometimes look long and hard for companies that have solutions to those problems, and that takes us to markets like Pakistan, like Africa, Middle East, South America, where talented entrepreneurs are building these companies. And so now here in Canada, we have 236. In fact, now it's even higher than 236 portfolio companies. So 100 of those are alumni of Techstars Toronto over the last, say, 6.5 years. But there's another 140 or so that are alumni of other Techstars, and they might be Canadian Techstars. We were running an AI program in Montreal for some time. We were also running a prop tech company for some time. But we also have Techstars companies from Canada that go to other accelerators, such as Ahmed's program in Los Angeles. For instance, Mind Easy, which is a mental health company, or Erdos Ventures, which is an e-commerce company, that are Toronto-based teams that went to Techstars in LA in those cases, but never really left Canada. So they're part of our portfolio. And we're now taking a very holistic portfolio approach of our companies. And it turns out we have the largest or the second largest portfolio of companies in this entire country. And that's remarkable to me that happened over the last several years. And we've done that by engaging a lot of mentors and people who are experienced in tech, who are investors, who are founders, who are ecosystem leaders. And we ask them to help. And they almost always say yes. And that's great. That's the model of Techstars, is really leveraging people's ability to be supportive and helpful, with nothing really in return other than the desire to help and wanting to feel that it's a good use of their time. So our company, caliber is usually very high, so they understand that their time will be well spent. And then the result of that is the creation of a lot of jobs here in this country and elsewhere, and also, a lot of money raised. And if you flip to the next slide, I think I have a little bit of a picture here of just the distribution of where these companies came from. You see lots of flags. So we've been here in Toronto investing almost 50-50, I would say, between Canadian companies and international companies. And that's just because we look at the world as a really big, exciting place. I think Canada is a nice part of it, but we're a small country. We're only 40 million people. And usually tech companies are not going to be that successful if they're only interested in a small market like Canada, like the Canadian market. And whereas there are enormous markets around the world, including in Pakistan with over 230 million people, young population, consuming everything and very tenacious and capable and innovating. So why not look there? So we have a flag, and we've made 3 investments in Pakistan, direct investments from Techstars Toronto. There are 3 logos of these many that are here. But we also have companies many from Africa, including countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, from South America, recently 2 in Brazil, from Eastern Europe, from India, from Azerbaijan and Vietnam and other countries, but a lot from Canada as well. And we like to kind of synthesize those 2 theses together, which is partly what we think, and I think Canada has to offer, which is, a friendly destination, potentially a place where people like to move to or live one day. Maybe it's not a requirement by any means, but this slide speaks to one of the channels on how we try to do that. There are some visa programs that Canada has that are kind of attractive to immigrants. I will say they don't always work as nicely as I would like them to. There's some flaws in the design, I think, of some of the programs, but nonetheless, there is potential there. We are one of the designated entities that can support visas, particularly the startup visa. But there are other talent visas as well that are around. And I think one of the positive outcomes of that is that even for a company where the founders are not interested or able to move, sometimes it's a positive signal for their own hiring. When you're hiring in a market and you're trying to bring in the top engineers, the data scientists and the web developers and even the people on the business side, very experienced people, they might be interested to see that if I join this company in Pakistan and Karachi or Lahore, Islamabad for a period of time, maybe down the road, I can do an intercompany transfer and go with this company to another place, which could be Canada, could be the US, the UK, or anywhere else. And sometimes that just, speaks to people's own ambitions in life as they raise families and, think of the future. So that's really it. So thanks for sharing those slides. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so we can all, one of our goals. So Sunil has, by the way, one of the most diverse array of founders within his portfolio in the Techstars universe, and I think just him speaking to how globally focused his program is really something we all could mimic in the Techstars universe, and I know that's something that I'm trying to channel and bring to Los Angeles with some of my partners there. So that kind of got me and got us thinking, well, what is it that you look for, right? Like, how do we, in being in our seats, evaluate a company? And there's two ways to really look at this. And I think the typical answer that you'll often get from most investors and most VCs is an array of something like this, right? So you'll get people and investors saying, well, we really want to understand the problem solution fit. Are you building a vitamin or are you building a painkiller? And, that analogy is often used. Vitamins could be good for you, but there's no, definitive science. Painkillers solve real pain, and people and customers are willing to pay for that. So almost inherently, all investors want you to build a painkiller. And I think that's a good place to start. But there will be a lot of understanding of that problem solution fit. Then you'll have people trying to understand your market. And, you want to build credibility. Not too long ago, I had someone in my LinkedIn DMs say that their market size was $24 trillion. Do you all know what else is $24 trillion? The US GDP. So any sort of credibility that person had was completely wiped out in that moment. But the notion here is that investors want to invest typically in a large market because it shows sales velocity, the opportunity to grow, and things of that sort. Then you'll have other investors say, hey, we really want to understand your distribution. How are you going to market? How are you meeting the customer and getting kind of mind share and being right at the top of mind when they're ready to purchase? And then really dive into all of your go-to-market plans, what you have in the pipeline, sort of your sales cycle, things of that sort. And then they'll finally get to team. And, team, they really want to understand why this team at this moment in time for the product and service that you're building. And I think, great teams are able to answer those questions pretty easily. Now, for us at Techstars, the answer is slightly different. Reason being that, we believe in education and mentorship, and we really want to coach you along the way of building your company. So for us, it's always team, right? We always view team as the first pillar to really invest in. Reason being is that we invest in great founders. We want to make sure that you are wholesome people, that you have the ability to be coached, you have the ability to execute, but more than that, you are excited and willing to go all in on the problem that you're currently working toward. Second point, team. Again, we over-index on team. We just want to know that you are committed to what you're building, and that you kind of have some sort of, maybe whether it's founder market fit or some other notion you're really speaking to that element as a whole. Third point, team again. We love teams that move quick, that move fast and furiously, and that can execute. And we try to understand all of that in the interview process. After that, we'll finally look at your product and see if you are bringing some sort of novel technology to market and how that's being applied. And then we'll dive into the traction and really understand, okay, where is this in the timeline? You know, how much revenue do you have? Other elements and benchmarks that we could look against. So I'd be remiss to not at least mention that, we have multiple applications open across the Techstars universe. I'll highlight a few here. We have Techstars LA, which will launch for our spring cycle from March to June. We are actively recruiting companies. I'd love to have a Pakistani company in the portfolio. I come from Pakistani descent, so it would be incredible to have one in the mix. We have Techstars Healthcare also running at the same time. And then, of course, as Sunil mentioned, Techstars Toronto too. So these are QR codes. I'd ask you all, if you are a founder, you are building a company, please, please, please take a look at our application pages, get in touch with us, and get in front of us as quickly as possible. And that's sort of what we had for, kind of prepared remarks. And I'll pause here, take some brief questions, and then kind of move into a moderated panel where I poke and prod Sunil for some insight into all things startup. Okay, so Ali has dropped a few questions here. Let's take a look what we have. So Sunil, I'll let you answer this one. Stage of company at which the application can be sent to Techstars, MVP ready, traction. What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, first of all, the stage of anyone can apply. And so the stage of company can literally be any stage. However, as you mentioned in the number of applications that you review in Los Angeles, we also review a very high number here in Toronto. And so it's always benchmarked, or it's relative to the application pool for that given accelerator. So you're running a batch in March, so are we. We're seeing a large number of companies apply. We're starting to look at them now. In our case, my small team we're a team of 4 people. We're doing a few AMAs like this on different channels the last few days, and talking to more people from different ecosystems and different verticals. But really, if the team is there and there's a product that either has been formed or is in the process of formation or is later stage, has some traction, we have a look. But I really think it's an art more than a science. So it's hard to really answer that it has to be this and not that here's the line. I don't think in our case there's any line. And I think you will agree with that as well, because you are biased towards the team also. So if a company can be well articulated, well presented, and can be kind of convincing in its ability to not only survive but thrive, it's tough times out there, tough market, then it's definitely worth a look. I also think one other thing, which is that depending on where you're from in the world, if you're from a very well networked tech ecosystem, if you happen to live in a city where the tech ecosystem is quite active, there are a lot of events, there are a few people who are known to be leaders in the tech scene, and they're accessible to you and they can introduce you to others, then sometimes it's better for you to choose a tech accelerator in another place than where you live. I just personally believe this. So I often am directing companies to think about going outside, not just, hey, if you're from Toronto, and sure, there's a Techstars in Toronto, that's great, we'd like to meet you, but also consider LA or New York or Dubai or Lagos or anywhere else in the world, because the network you'll build there is going to be quite powerful to you, and it's a different one than what you have back home. And if you, like I said, if you're in an ecosystem that's self-organized and is built to be to make connections, then maybe take advantage of that, but go to another Techstars, because that might represent a different market for you, a bigger one, and you're invariably going to come back. I don't see too many companies leaving their country of origin permanently. That's a difference, maybe Techstars against some other accelerators where we're so distributed around the world. But people go for the experience and the network and then kind of come back to thrive, survive and thrive. So that's one attitude to have. It's one of the ones that I kind of believe in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, the one thing or two things I'd add is that, specifically as it relates to the MVP question, it really depends what you're building, right? So if you're building a space company, obviously, some companies are quite literally building the future. It's very hard to have a rocket that is MVP ready for us to evaluate as an investment. But what we could evaluate is the team, right? We can see if they are former rocket scientists or engineers from some of the larger companies, and decide if we invest in them. That was certainly the case in this in our current space cohort. We have two founders that are building a medium class rocket, and given SpaceX's launch yesterday, I think this was quite apropos. Obviously they don't have any sort of rocket in place yet, but they did have some models that they were willing to share with us. They also, came from backgrounds at SpaceX and relativity space.
But more than that, I'll actually comment on that. Maybe if you don't mind taking this screen off, we can go slides if necessary. But space is a great example. You live in Los Angeles. Techstars has a fantastic space program led by you and Matt Kozlov and others there in LA. You have NASA as a partner, Jet Propulsion Lab as a partner, all these big companies, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, and all these gigantic companies there. That's a very valuable situation or position to be offering a tech startup. And I look at Canada, like we're a bit of a space nation. I actually, believe it or not, worked at the Canadian Space Agency earlier in my life, back in my government days. And so I have a good understanding of the space sector. But we have two really successful Techstars companies in Canada in the space industry. One is Kepler and one is Skywatch, right? Yep. Skywatch and Kepler. And I've had a long point of view on both of those companies. And neither of them did their Techstars in Canada. In fact, to be honest, we weren't even running when they were launched. No pun intended. But there's Kepler was in Seattle, went to the Seattle program, and Skywatch in New York. And Kepler's become the largest satellite manufacturer in this country. Is that company, and Skywatch as well. Tremendous success. But it's really going away, getting those relationships and the network and building and building your company, where you're from. So Toronto or Waterloo. So just as an example to my point of, if you're a great space company, I might say go to Techstars LA for that accelerator versus, another one somewhere else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's sort of what we preach founders is, go to the program that's going to benefit you the most, that's going to provide you the most value. And the only way you're able to find that out is by getting in touch with the team there, right? And asking questions, getting in front of them, things of that sort. But thanks for asking that question. Okay, next we had, there's actually, let's see. So this often comes up, and I'd be, how does Techstars compare to some of the other large accelerators that are out there? Predominantly YC, plug and play. There are a few others, but curious to get your takes, Sunil.
Okay, well, I would say high level, in my mind, the similarities outweigh the differences. We have a lot of complementarity. I appreciate that these accelerators, YC, Plug and Play, 500, Antler, Forum, Alchemist, there are more. Startup Wise Guys in Eastern Europe, there are more. But I appreciate that these are, as I understand them, we're all venture capital funds at heart. We're all, pre-seed investors putting in private money and, taking equity into companies, placing an investment, writing a check, and having that responsibility that comes with that. We're now shareholders, and we have to earn that equity, and we try our very, very best to do it. And there are many programs in the world that are, I guess, non-dilutive type programs. These are by and large government-sponsored innovation programs. And those, I think, are different. And you were at the beginning of this call sort of defining incubators and accelerators. And I think accelerators, in my mind, the definition is batch-based. There's a starting date and an end date. It's a cohort or a class. So you're joining with a group of companies and finishing with those companies. There's equity. I really think that equity shares, there should be some exchange of value, which creates not only the investment outcomes that we're looking for, maybe, you know, if the companies succeed, which is obviously a long process and not a straight line or a given, but it also comes with that accountability and motivation, incentives, and why we're, you know, I'm available day and night to founders who call and text, and I, you know, it's we have our portfolio services team at Techstars that's supporting the companies after they finish Techstars, and they're, you know, with us for life. Our mantra is Techstars for life. I feel the same way. I think these same things are happening with these other accelerators that are mentioned. Now, the terms might vary slightly. Class of shares might vary slightly. In our case, we take common shares, common stock, which is the most friendly class of shares to ask a founding team to, you know, to part with. But there's money, you know, and so we're similar. But I think one difference, and we showed it on an earlier slide, when you look at all the, you know, the flags around the world, is we're distributed globally, right? So we're in all those cities and countries you mentioned, 39, I think you had on your slide, 14 countries. We run in those places. So I'm sitting in Toronto, you're sitting in Los Angeles. We run the same program. The deal is the same. There's the same terms. Whereas some other accelerators are concentrated in one place or two places in the world, and that's where you have to go for your accelerator. And that might be what you like. But our view is having this bespoke, small batch accelerator, high touch, with a team that's really working with those 12 companies at a time. You're looking for 12 in Techstars LA. I'm looking for 12 in Techstars Toronto. You also are looking for 12 in Techstars Space or Health, it seems. But in all these cities, it's 12 companies. And so it's a very small group. We create really strong relationships and bonds between those companies. It becomes like a family. And I like how that family can spread across geographies, across cultures, across religion. It's just great for me to watch that happen, and those friendships that get built, and they last long after Techstars is finished. I'm sure that's also the case when you have, you know, huge batches of 200 or 300 companies. There's also some, you know, real benefits to that. But I like the small bespoke nature of the Techstars model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, you know, our model is very high touch, right? We work with founders day in, day out, week in, week out. And, you know, so for all of our programs, you'll have one-on-ones with, you know, your respective MDs or leads of the program, and you'll chat with them about all the problems that exist. And I think that's a key differentiator, because oftentimes in some of the other accelerators, you don't necessarily get that time. You sort of have to request it, and even then, it's very limited. So,
and actually, as you look for another question on it, there was I saw one earlier. Someone had asked something to the effect that, are we connected? Like, are the accelerators connected to each other? And I, you know, the answer is yes. We are. You and I are talking right now on this Zoom call in three time zones apart. But the fact is, Techstars is one entity. It's one company, right? One company. And our colleagues, we all work for Techstars. We're all the same. We have our bi-weekly meetings with everybody, our managing director calls with all the, you know, whether my colleague is in Detroit or Miami, Los Angeles, Dubai, Lagos, you know, we're together, and we're available to each other. And we have software, our like, you know, Techstars Connect, that lets the founders connect across the entire network. So if you are a Canadian space tech company and you do need to have some type of meeting with JPL in LA, or you're, you know, wanting to talk to a big defense prime contractor in the US that has a partnership with one of our Techstars somewhere, that is certainly not only possible, but the expectation is you're going to get that meeting. We're going to find a way for that to happen, and we'll use our resources to do that. And that's because we're all part of the same organization. So there are the benefits of having a global presence and the connectivity of it. And as you and I were just recently.
Not sure if that's my Wi-Fi or Sunil's.
I think it's Sunil's.
Okay. Okay, so I think what he was referring to is just how interconnected we are as two organizations, or as one organization, with many bespoke programs throughout the world. Yeah, we have software internally that we use to help us connect. We often get, at least for LA, I often get requests from companies and program teams all over the world that have gone through our programs that ask for connection support or other sort of mentorship support. So that happens quite often. It's we work interchangeably as well as we can. I will say that when you come through one of our programs, most of the focus, of course, is on the individual portfolio companies coming through each and one of our respective programs. Okay, so kind of going through this next, what is the acceptance rate of solo founders? That's a good question. I think, generally speaking, we view the founder journey to be better had when there are, multiple co-founders. That doesn't mean that we don't invest in solo founders. We, of course, do. I think what we look for is founders who know where they want to go to and have a vision and an execution plan to get there. So, the one thing, and that's harder to do as a solo founder. It's much easier to do. There are multiple parties, you're able to distribute the work, and then able to execute it. But more than that, as a founder, the emotional journey that happens and takes place with, building a startup is much better had with two or more co-founders. That's my belief, having gone through it multiple times. I think I've now been part of 10 different startup teams, and having multiple co-founders is certainly a much, much easier challenge. So yeah, that's, sort of, what we look at. And then the acceptance rate as a whole across Techstars, I'd say hovers anywhere, from, 5% is generally, where it's at, but, given just the application volume, but that's, kind of high level. Welcome back, Sunil.
Sorry about that. I don't know. I think we should have a Techstars telecom here where we get our wireless or our mobile carriers and providers to innovate.
No, all good. Okay, so I want to move into some questions I had for you, Sunil. So first, I would love, as a technologist at heart, as an entrepreneur at heart, tell me what the hell is going on at OpenAI. I'm sure that is on everyone's minds, but any, sort of high-level insights or thoughts, of course, information is piecemeal, but
yeah,
I'm sure our founders are curious here as well.
Yeah, no, shocked, had no idea, just been following it. We're a bit of an AI hub here. We have the Vector Institute and people like Jeffrey Hinton, the father of AI. They're from this city. So we do have a lot at stake. A lot of these University of Toronto and Waterloo data scientists and engineers are being snapped up by big companies worldwide. So I think it's a relevant issue, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what's the genesis here. But I know that we're investing in these type of companies. We had a few in our very recent batch, and using these like language modules to kind of disrupt industries like pharmacy and healthcare and others. So I don't know what to say. I'm gonna try to read about it this weekend. Haven't
So it seems like, the board removed him. Any advice on how founders could navigate such a situation, or how they could better prepare their companies as they're, actively fundraising and building?
Yeah. Well, trust and communication, like I'm seeing it, in fact, in a startup. I won't say which startup, but there's a company that has kind of like, I'm watching the cadence of like, all of a sudden it's at the top of the world and things are just so great, raised millions of dollars, and quickly things have turned sour. But I think it's due to trust, and it's due to statements, and it's due to things that were promised or indicated that may not be reality, and how quickly people lose confidence in someone, even when money's there, and it's so hard to build that back up. And I actually think that this point is really important for people who are representing emerging economies, okay? Whether it is Pakistan or Nigeria or, any other kind of fast rising large population, but not fully appreciated by the mainstream world of tech, of investors, and, the people with money in the US or Canada, Europe, because there's this potential, where some people are waiting for that to happen, waiting for this kind of, not necessarily scandal, but something negative that could make them think, I knew that we shouldn't be investing there in that market, or it's too risky. And when the risk is not just business risk, but it's a risk of individuals, of their behavior, I think we have to be aware, because you're not only letting yourself and your investors down, but you're going to potentially be impacting all the other companies around you who don't deserve that. So you have a responsibility. And as early stage people like we are, we're investing in high volumes of companies, right? High volumes. We're writing checks, but there's so many. We have actually close to 4,000 investments now. It might even be at 4,000, Ahmed, believe it or not. Yep. And we're a small, there's a couple of us in each market doing it. And so we take we do our best, we do due diligence, and we get to know founders, but ultimately we're backing people on their word. And if you let us down, that's really unfortunate. So I'm hoping that I don't know if that's the case with Sam Altman. I have no idea what's going on here, but I sometimes think like where this really can happen to negative consequences is in emerging ecosystems.
Yeah. And that's sort of what I coach founders to, right? Is always operate from a place of transparency, right? So be honest in your communications, be upfront. Whenever I walk into one-on-ones with my companies, I'm always astounded. In the beginning, everyone's like, everything's great, everything's going just as planned. And, I start asking a few questions to triangulate, and that's never the case, right? I think we all know startups generally, if you have 10 things going on at a startup, maybe one thing is going well, or two things are going out well. Everything else is a raging fire typically. Your goal is to communicate that out and to get the resources and help that you need to mitigate any sort of epic failures or disasters. So yeah, I fully kind of echo those sentiments. So another question, a bit related maybe to what you were saying earlier, but how are you looking at 2024? We've had some softening in capital markets as a whole, especially on the VC side. How are you coaching founders that are going through your programs to manage their fundraises, especially as it relates to maybe their first formal institutional round?
Yeah, well, managing the burn rate and being really aware of the money in the bank, and being modest in I guess growth, in terms of staff growth, and I think it's just extra effort all around, possibly partnering in other ecosystems where talent can be available, but much more cost effective than some of the higher cost centers. Toronto is an example where we bring in a lot of talent here. From countries like Pakistan and India and Middle East and South America, and great talent, no question. It's one of our big statements to the world is we have these visa programs for the one's called the Global Talent Stream, so the people working here, but it's a high cost of living city, too high. It shouldn't be this high, but it is. Houses are millions of dollars now, and it's unfortunate. But there are other markets where talent is available, and we're switching to remote work, hybrid work, and that's something actually. When you look at the currencies, I wonder, are we fully appreciating how certain currencies have depreciated, like, you know, the Pakistani rupee and the Nigerian naira? And are we engaging talent there to the degree that we could or should to help the company and deal with the time zones and kind of the lack of interaction? Because we're all at home. Most of us are at home anyway. You and I are right now. Well, you're in, I think, Nebraska on a visit, and I'm in Mississauga, you know. So why can't you be in Karachi as well? And just you know, and obviously this is happening. We have actually picked a company from Pakistan, Dev Nation, that is has been trying to do it. It's been slow for them from what I see, but the potential, that's why we invested in them, and a company in Africa called Labor Hack, another one called Talent QL, Alt School. You know, these are companies that are aggregating really good talent and kind of providing them either as on placements or in aggregate as talent shops. And it's good opportunities for people to work, meaningful work with great companies, and maybe a big future. So I see more of that happening, actually, more of the, and that's why I watch these companies like Deal. They acquired a LegalPad, this Techstars company, to do like these local company of record and visa support, you know, for talent to move around, because the talent seems to be just flowing. Like people are willing to relocate and cross-locate, and I think we're going to see that's part of what we should be doing and encouraging and just participating in. And also it should help the bottom line finances of a business, particularly when you're in a high cost place of operation. So here we're I'll just say one more thing. I'm kind of just going all over the place here, but Toronto, even though it's an expensive city to live in and to thrive in, but it's not a really high wage city. It's not like the people here in tech that I know are making, you know, $200,000 a year on average. They're not getting paid like the big dollars that you see in the US, in New York or San Francisco and other places, but the cost of living is pretty high. So that, you know, the companies that are here are I'm encouraging them to partner in other ecosystems and to try to, like, you know, in a way. And when you do that, you kind of are creating these mini multinational companies. So they could have a headquarters here, say in Toronto or Vancouver, but a big operating center in Lahore or in Bangalore or Lagos or somewhere, and could have a good complement of people. And if you can manage the people, you can do a lot. You can innovate. You can create products that are, you know, great for the world, SaaS products, you know, and fintech products. And this is what you know can be purchased and as from big institutions as customers. And I think they're more open to that now, especially if it's wrapped, like marketed properly. Like, okay, this is the company, it's legally headquartered here. There's a proper, you know, it's a proper business. There's no risk. But they're, you know, and they're best in class, and it's affordable. So I encourage my companies to get into that mindset and collaborate and use the network that you have and build things that are global, but do it earlier than normally happens. Like, no, don't wait till you're like a big company to start expanding and thinking about the world. You can start early now, and it doesn't take too much money to do that.
Yeah, no, that's it's absolutely you know, nails the nail right on the head. You know, for us, last cohort, we had a company by the name of PropTex. Actually, they relocated to Toronto now. Their entire team is in Karachi and Lahore. They have a bunch of data scientists and AI specialists. I believe they have 12 people across Karachi and Lahore, you know, from various levels. They have solution architects, they have developers, programmers, and you know, people with expertise around AI and large language models. But that's what they're doing, right? Is that, you know, they are fractionalizing work that would typically go to one or two people in Western countries, and trying to build their startups. And I coach startups a lot on trying to fractionalize the work and trying to bring a broader perspective to their companies. I think it's so key to what you were saying earlier, to really get in that mindset ahead of any of the large companies. Okay, so we have a few minutes here, so I'll take a couple questions from the crowd. So there's So this one often comes up is how do you support alumni? So let's say a company has gone through your program, and maybe I'll kick off. From my perspective, what we do often is, let's say, so companies that graduated in the spring cohort, so that's June, early June. I'm helping them by making introductions to my fellow investor friends, VC friends. They're actively, the startups are actively fundraising, going after their first formal round. I'm also making introductions to customers. So let's say they're looking to get into a large corporate. They'll leverage us for that support as well. And then lastly, any sort of market research or intel we have. We keep that, touch point with our companies for life, and that's sort of the promise that we make, is that we're going on an 8 to 10 year journey at the very least, and we want to support you and be there. And that's why, Sunil was saying we go in as common shareholders, is, we really view ourselves as that third co-founder. We want to support you and be there for you. So, that's why we're so founder oriented, we're founder friendly, and that's sort of some of the support work that we do.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm people who know me know that, oh my gosh, on WhatsApp, I have all these, I keep everyone, every one of the alumni. We've got 100 in Toronto. Now, a few of them have actually closed business. It hasn't really, startups are hard. I don't necessarily recommend people like automatically launch tech companies. I think it's a low probability of success endeavor, but there are, the majority are very active and still growing and still, swinging for the fences. So to stay in touch, I've been doing Techstars for a lot of years. So all the companies that we've had at Toronto are in fact companies that I've made the investment in. And so I'm familiar with them. That's not always the case because, people, sometimes change roles and careers and launch their own funds and other things. So, but we luckily have this portfolio services team at Techstars, which is, built to be supporting the companies after they finish. Because, we sort of shift to the next, we finish a batch and then there's a short break and then we're on to the next batch, right? Of recruiting and interviewing and talking and doing Zoom calls like this, and then, making the investments on the next class. But the ones who've been invested in, they don't go away, and we care about them, and we're shareholders in them, and I'm personally a shareholder in my companies, so that is a good incentive to stay connected. But the numbers are growing. I'll even say we've done something else here, which is more ambitious. Is we've sort of taken an approach to look after the entire Canadian portfolio. So that's including some of your LA companies, like you mentioned. In fact, there might be one more if this prop techs you mentioned is moved here. We may reach out and start including them on our updates, and sometimes we host events, or we have tickets to big tech events, or we write newsletters and things. So we might start adding them, get to know them a little bit. Now we do the best. We're a very small team here. And just two of us are actually in Toronto all year. One is Mohammed Shibin. He's my colleague. And then I have two colleagues that are part of Techstars Toronto, but they're both American. And one is in the US and one is in Africa, sourcing and supporting. But when we're running, we're all together here in Toronto. So, but it is part of what the value of doing an accelerator is that post graduation relationship and network and alumni and FounderCon and all the things that happen, and the brand. We focus a lot on our keeping our network very top of mind, keeping it top of mind, not just for the alumni, but of course we want to have signal value, right? That's something I want to mention, is that it's important for anyone considering an accelerator. If you're giving up a good period of your time and life, many months into something, be aware of what does that organization signal to others, and think about that in that, if you're interested in attracting investment money or large corporate customers or media, Wall Street Journal type media stories on you, then is the program you're considering joining, does it signal to those groups positively? Is there like almost a sense of FOMO that they might have, that if I don't talk to this company, because it came from this accelerator, I'm going to risk losing out. It's in a way, it's like an elite global university, like a Stanford or a Harvard. like even from emerging markets, there's universities like Sharif University in Iran that's like one of the best in the world. If people know, they know. And if you're a Sharif graduate or an IIT graduate, you're probably pretty smart, and I should take that, like, give it the attention that I'm being asked, or else I'm not doing my job. So that signal value is important, and I would just recommend you consider that.
Yeah. And then I think the last one we'll take here, because that's all we have time for, is, are you bullish on Pakistani startups? I would say, from my perspective, I certainly am. It's one of the largest installed bases in the world for internet connectivity on a per basis. So given the number of people in a certain area and how well they're connected to the internet. So that is pretty high. I think for all of the elements we discussed earlier, it's a relatively young population. I think the average age is somewhere between 20 to 25. And they're, extremely, well established. They're learning, they're going after higher education. And that kind of all are the core elements of startup activity. So we expect to see a lot of startup activity coming out of South Asia, in particular in Pakistan. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the next batch of companies.
Yeah. And I'll just say, like, we've done 3 investments, so I've got some firsthand experience.
Yep.
Quite happy. There's a company called Swag Kicks, SWAG-Kicks. I might paste it. They're from Pakistan. That's the sneaker kind of secondhand marketplace of fashion and sports fashion, particularly footwear. Amazing company, really strong team, and I've just gotten to enjoy. They've been coming to Toronto and sort of establishing themselves here. Social Champ, which is like a social, kind of an analytics dashboard, a bit in the spirit of Hootsuite, but just talented people from Pakistan, very attractive pricing, on par with what you would see in other types of social analytics SaaS software. Impressive. So I think there should be more like that. Market, as you said, is big, 230 million people, young population. I've had good experience. The diaspora is strong. I think that's important. And, there's Pakistanis all over the world doing great things in tech. I'd like to get more connected with them. If there's more groups, PakLaunch is the best I've seen worldwide, actually. So this is why when Ali asked me to join you, I said, for sure, I'll join. The Indians and other groups, sometimes I see more of them. So, if the Pakistani tech diaspora could become a bit more cohesive, in countries like Canada, that'd be nice. If I do try that as a non-Pakistani, just like let's get the founders and the investors who share the origin to become like, hold dinners or something once in a while so we can share deal flow. But yeah, it's good. I don't want to speak to government issues. I'm seeing that in not just Pakistan, but lots of countries. There's lots of problems in governance and general economic conditions, currency. Those are challenges, right? So hopefully that gets better, but geopolitics is what it is. But really you're investing in talent and markets, right? So you have it. So we'll see where it goes, but it's interesting. If nothing else, it's fascinating to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I completely echo and agree. And yeah, there should be more collaborative efforts like this one, where you can have people from maybe different parts of the world come together and share their vision for for a single country or a single population.
Yeah. I will just say one more thing, because there's people still here. If you're trying to connect, and it's like we do these Zoom sessions deliberately, it does expose us to a lot of people that are looking for conversations and meetings and all that. We do our best, but really both Ahmed and myself, we're in the market to find companies to apply and to review. And we have a very straightforward application process. We ask for things that we will always require: a team video, some presentation summaries of your company's description of who you are. We review them all. So I'm going to ask you that should be your channel of interaction if you are looking to actually apply for Techstars. If you're looking for, meetings and conversations, do our best, but it's a heavy time right now. And we talked about alumni, and we have to focus on our portfolio companies, and this time we have, we often try to give it to them. But do apply. It's straightforward. There's no, and you know a lot about Techstars by joining this call, and there's so much information online, but do go through the steps of a full, complete, deliberate application, and we'll look at it. And and if we don't get you the first time, I see it often that the next batch is, we see the progress you've made, the lines, not dots kind of idea, that we're seeing momentum and kind of delivery of what you've stated you're going to do. So please, do a good application. And we also refer applications to other accelerators, and we all kind of go in the same system. We have our own application management system, so we can sort of review them and forward them. Oh, this is an ag tech solution, right? Let's say something to do with the food efficiencies and waste, for instance, on the food market. So we have a Techstars for that called Farm to Fork. It's in Minneapolis, and so we might just send it there because the partners are aligned. They're Cargill and Ecolab and others. So, sometimes that's how it works. And then later I find out that company actually got accepted, and I read it in the announcement when the classes are announced, and I'm like, oh, that's how it happened. And, we referred it in, and then they, my colleagues took it from there. And so keep that in mind, please.
Yeah. And at the very least, I'm sure this session gives you some insight into how founder-oriented we are and how closely we work with all of our companies. And if anything, we'd at least give you an hour on the weekend to help facilitate any issue that you may be facing. So thanks again for joining, and looking forward to reading your applications. And yes, please apply to LA, because I'd love to have a Pakistani company in there.
That's right. Then you'll have one, and I've got three.
You've got three. Yeah. Yeah, but striving to be like you, Sunil.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Take it easy. Bye.